Right now, at this moment, American warplanes are over Iran. A United States journalist is missing somewhere inside Baghdad. And the last time you filled your gas tank, you paid $4 a gallon, the highest price Americans have seen in 4 years. Tonight, we cover every story reshaping your world. A president who says this war could end in weeks. A Supreme Court ruling that has divided the nation, NASA's most daring mission in 50 years, and the collapse of one of sport's most celebrated icons. Stay right here. This is the broadcast you cannot afford to miss. Here is where every story stands right now. The United States and Iran are at war, and officials confirmed this evening that President Trump plans to address the nation with what the White House described as an important update. U.S. gas prices have crossed $4 per gallon for the first time since 2022, driven directly by the disruption to global oil supplies caused by the conflict. American journalist Shelly Kittleson has been kidnapped in Baghdad. This is the story that is reshaping everything. It began in late March 2026 when the United States launched military operations against Iran, targeting what officials described as the regime's nuclear infrastructure and military command. What followed has been one of the most consequential military engagements in a generation. Today, in remarks that sent markets surging, President Trump told reporters the United States would leave Iran in 2 to 3 weeks. Oil prices, which had soared to historic highs during the conflict, fell sharply on those comments, dropping below $100 per barrel for the first time in weeks. Sources familiar with the situation confirmed that China has entered diplomacy channels, attempting to broker a ceasefire, though officials on both sides cautioned that no formal agreement is imminent. The BBC reported that Iran's government responded by stating it has the necessary will to end the war, though Iranian officials stopped short of announcing any agreement. Meanwhile, reporting from the ground confirmed that Iran has been using children as young as 11 in security roles, a claim sources say is backed by witness testimony and photographic evidence. At sea, a sanctioned Russian oil tanker was confirmed to have docked in Cuba after the United States allowed its passage despite an ongoing energy blockade, a move that sources close to the administration described as a calculated concession. Trump lashed out at American allies, telling nations facing high fuel prices to get their own oil from the Strait of Hormuz. In Washington, the White House confirmed the president would address the nation this evening with an important update on the war. The Iran war has altered global energy markets, strained U.S. alliances, and created a humanitarian crisis that officials say is growing by the day. The Iran war is not staying in the Middle East. It is arriving at every gas station in America. Officials confirmed this week that the average price of gasoline in the United States has crossed $4 per gallon, the highest level since 2022. The increase is being driven directly by the disruption to global oil supplies caused by the conflict, with the price of Brent crude oil rising a record 64% during the month of March alone. NBC News reported that Americans across the country are struggling with the surge, with interviews capturing frustration and anger over costs that are already straining household budgets. The BBC documented the cascading effects, noting that a global jet fuel shortage is now raising the cost of air travel worldwide. Sources familiar with the economic impact say the pain is not limited to the pump. Food delivery costs are rising, freight costs are climbing, and economists warn that if the conflict persists, inflation pressures could intensify significantly. For ordinary Americans, this is perhaps the most tangible consequence of a distant war, felt every single time they pull up to a gas station. A chilling reminder of the dangers faced by those who report the news arrived today from Baghdad. U.S. journalist Shelly Kittleson has been kidnapped in Iraq, officials confirmed. Video footage, obtained by NBC News and verified by multiple outlets, shows Kittleson being forcibly bundled into a vehicle on a Baghdad street. The circumstances of the abduction remain under investigation, and sources familiar with the situation say U.S. authorities are in active contact with Iraqi officials. The Associated Press, BBC, and NBC News all confirmed the kidnapping independently. No group has claimed responsibility as of this broadcast. The incident has drawn immediate condemnation from press freedom organizations, who note that the Iran war has dramatically increased the risk environment for journalists operating across the Middle East. Kittleson was working in Baghdad at the time of the abduction. Officials at the State Department declined to comment beyond confirming they are aware of the situation and working to ensure her safety. The kidnapping underscores a broader crisis for press freedom in a region already on fire and serves as a stark reminder of the human cost of conflict for those who bear witness to it. The United States Supreme Court has struck down Colorado's ban on conversion therapy for LGBTQ youth in a decision officials confirmed was reached along ideological lines. The ruling effectively invalidates similar laws in more than 20 states that had prohibited therapists from attempting to change the sexual orientation or gender identity of minors. NBC News, AP, and the New York Times all confirmed the ruling, noting that it represents a significant reversal in a decade-long trend of state-level protections for LGBTQ youth. Legal experts describe the decision as a major victory for religious liberty advocates and a devastating blow to LGBTQ advocacy groups. Officials at the ACLU and multiple organizations announced immediate plans to challenge the ruling's implementation. Mental health professionals warned in statements following the ruling that conversion therapy practices have been repeatedly linked to increased rates of depression and suicide among young people. The debate over this ruling is far from over, and it will remain a central fault line in American political and cultural life for years to come. NASA is counting down to the launch of Artemis II, the most significant human spaceflight mission in over 50 years. If successful, this mission will be the first time human beings have flown beyond low Earth orbit since the final Apollo mission in 1972, more than half a century ago. 4 astronauts are preparing for liftoff from Kennedy Space Center on Florida's Space Coast, where sources on the ground described an atmosphere of extraordinary excitement and anticipation. Crowds have gathered, officials confirmed, with the BBC reporting scenes of jubilation and wonder among the tens of thousands who have traveled to witness the launch. The mission will not land on the moon, but it will send astronauts further from Earth than any human being has traveled since the Apollo era, conducting a critical test of the Orion spacecraft ahead of future lunar landing missions. NASA officials confirmed that weather conditions are favorable and the rocket is ready for launch. An Apollo 17 astronaut, one of the last human beings to walk on the moon, shared advice with the Artemis II crew in a moment that sources described as deeply moving. In a world consumed by war and political turmoil, the Artemis II launch represents a rare moment of shared human ambition, a reminder that beyond all the conflict, our species still dares to reach for the stars. Tiger Woods, widely regarded as the greatest golfer of all time, announced today that he is stepping away from the sport to seek treatment following his arrest on suspicion of driving under the influence in Florida. Officials confirmed that Woods pleaded not guilty to the charge during a court appearance, and sources familiar with his situation say he was showing signs of impairment at the time of a rollover crash. His own son, sources confirmed, said his father confessed to the incident during a FaceTime call. Woods issued a public statement saying he is stepping away for a period of time to seek treatment and focus on his health. The BBC, AP, NBC, and the New York Times all confirmed the announcement. Woods will miss the Masters golf tournament as a result, a competition he has won 5 times. This is a figure who has overcome multiple back surgeries, a devastating car crash in 2021, and years of physical rehabilitation, only to find himself at another crossroads. Sources across the sports world expressed a mixture of shock, concern, and compassion. Tiger Woods remains one of the most consequential athletes the world has ever seen, and today he is asking for the space to heal. So what do all of these stories tell us? They tell us that the world is simultaneously at its most dangerous and its most hopeful. A war that nobody wanted is edging toward a conclusion that nobody fully trusts. A gas price that feels personal reminds us that global events are never truly distant. A kidnapped journalist reminds us of the price of truth. A Supreme Court ruling reminds us that rights won are never permanently secured. And a rocket pointing at the moon reminds us of what we are capable of when ambition overcomes fear. Tiger Woods asking for help reminds us that even the most powerful among us are human. The decisions being made right now by presidents, by courts, by scientists, by athletes will define the world your children inherit. Stay informed, stay engaged. The story is not over. That is tonight's Global Report. If this broadcast gave you clarity, hit the subscribe button now. We are here every day bringing you the stories that matter most. Drop a comment below telling us which story you think will have the biggest impact on your life. Share this video with someone who needs to see it, and we will see you in the next one.